The year was drawing into its coldest season when she first appeared, a lone figure walking the narrow mountain road, her face hidden beneath a black veil. No one knew from where she had come, only that the snow did not seem to cling to her, and her steps made little sound against the frozen earth. The town was small, weary, and bound tight by its faith. Outsiders seldom passed through, and when they did not linger. Yet this woman carried herself as though she belonged nowhere else. She settled in a weather-beaten cabin on the edge of the woods, a place the townsfolk had long avoided, believing it cursed. From the start, there was something in her presence that unsettled the people. Her eyes, pale and distant, seemed to look through a man rather than at him. Her voice, when she spoke, was soft, almost fragile, but carried the weight of something older than memory. At first, the townsfolk kept their distance. Whispers passed from porch to porch, questions carried in low tones at the churchyard. Who was she? Why had she come? And why did she choose to stay in a valley that swallowed so many others whole? No one could answer. But before long, curiosity would outweigh fear. And in the cold shadows of the mountain town, her presence would grow into something neither the people nor their preacher could ignore. It began with a widow, broken with grief, who crept to the cabin under cover of night. She returned pale, trembling, but with tears of relief upon her cheeks. She swore the stranger had spoken her husband's very words, phrases and secrets only the dead man could have known. Word spread quickly, carried in hushed tones at the well and whispered behind closed doors. One by one, others made their way to the edge of the woods, seeking what the woman offered. A mother desperate to hear from a lost child. A farmer haunted by his brother's death. A young girl longing for the comfort of her grandmother's voice. The woman listened to them all. She spoke names the living had never uttered aloud. She revealed secrets buried in the soil of memory, secrets that made even the hardest men tremble. Some called her a gift from heaven, a vessel through which the Lord gave comfort to the grieving. Others muttered of witchcraft, of a woman consorting with spirits not meant to be stirred. But whether they cursed her or praised her, the townsfolk kept coming. By candlelight, by moonlight, by the flicker of fear and hope, the dead were given voice, and the town itself seemed to lean closer, caught between faith and terror. It was not long before the preacher took notice. His sermons grew louder, harsher, each word aimed like a blade toward the cabin in the woods. He thundered from the pulpit that the woman was no messenger of God, but a servant of darkness, sent to lure their souls into ruin. He spoke of temptation, of false prophets and lying tongues. He warned that grief made people weak, and that in their weakness, they were opening the door to the devil himself. His eyes burned with fury as he declared her a witch in all but name, and his voice carried beyond the church walls into every home in the valley. Yet even as his rage grew, so did the quiet footsteps toward the stranger's door. Families who nodded in agreement at Sunday service still found themselves, by nightfall, seeking her whispers in the dark. The preacher felt the ground shifting beneath him. Authority that had once been absolute was now shaken, for his people listened not only to his word but to hers. And with each passing night, his fear deepened that the town was slipping beyond his grasp, into the hands of a woman who spoke to the dead. The whispers she carried from the grave did more than comfort the grieving, they unearthed truths the living had buried. A murdered man named his killer. A woman confessed to poisoning her neighbor's well. A son, thought lost to accident, was revealed to have taken his own life in despair. Each secret tore through the town like wildfire, splitting families, unraveling trust, and leaving wounds that could not be mended. Where once the church bell bound the people together, now silence filled the streets, thick with suspicion. Some claimed the woman was a savior, forcing hidden sins into the light so that the town might be cleansed. Others swore she was the devil's hand, setting kin against kin, sowing discord where peace had stood. The preacher's fury turned desperate, for it was not only the people's loyalty that slipped away, it was their fear. They no longer trembled at his warnings, but at the truths spoken in a cabin at the forest's edge. And as each secret clawed its way to the surface, the town itself seemed to rot from within, its foundations shaken by voices that should have stayed silent in the grave. The preacher could endure no more. Under a sky swollen with storm clouds, he gathered the townsfolk, his voice fierce with conviction. He declared the woman an abomination, a vessel of corruption sent to shatter their faith. With torches in hand, they marched toward the cabin at the edge of the woods, their shadows flickering like a legion of specters across the frozen ground. The night air was heavy, charged with dread. Trees groaned in the wind as the crowd pressed closer, their chants echoing between thunderclaps. The cabin's windows glowed faintly with candlelight, a fragile beacon against the tide of fury advancing upon it. The woman did not run. She stood waiting, veiled and still, as if she had known this moment would come from the very hour she first set foot in the valley. Her pale eyes caught the torchlight, reflecting it back with a calm that unsettled even the boldest among them. The preacher raised his hand, fire blazing at its tip, ready to deliver judgment. But before flame could touch wood, a sound broke the night, a voice not of the living, but of the dead. It rippled through the trees, low and mournful, a chorus rising from the very earth beneath their feet. The crowd froze, their torches trembling. For in that moment, they understood, the dead had come to speak for themselves. What happened that night was never spoken of in full. Some claimed the cabin was swallowed in flame, yet no ashes were ever found. Others swore the woman vanished into the woods, her veil drifting behind her like mist, never to be seen again. But all agreed on one thing. The voices of the dead had risen, and nothing in the valley was the same thereafter. Families left the town in fear, abandoning farms and homes that had stood for generations. Those who remained lived under a silence more suffocating than any sermon. The preacher, once a figure of unshakable authority, grew hollow-eyed and frantic, his words carrying no weight, for his flock no longer trusted him. They had heard truths beyond his power to bear. Children were warned never to wander near the forest's edge, where some swore they could still see a flicker of candlelight through the trees, or hear faint whispers on the wind. Whispers that carried the names of the long dead, and so, the legend grew. Travelers spoke of a valley haunted not by ghosts, but by the memory of a woman who dared to give them voice. Some called her a witch. Others, a saint. But whether blessed or cursed, her name was never forgotten. For she was the woman who spoke to the dead.